Hey guys, welcome to some more math with McComish. We're going to be multiplying integers using integer chips in this video. So it's really important that you get the language correct for what a multiplication statement says. So what it says is 4 times 3 would be 4 groups of 3. Now we're going to use red chips for positive, and I like to think of it as the Calgary Flames because they're great. And blue as negative as the Edmonton Oilers because they are not. So remember that. So 4 groups of 3. I have 3 positives in each group on this one, and I make 4 groups. My answer is the total. Obviously, you know that the answer is 12 for this. But it's important to remember this. So write that in your notes, please. So if we start using integers now, this says we have 3 groups of -2. So we draw 3 groups. Each one has -2 in it. In total, I have -6. So this one would say I have 3 groups of -4. So I have -4 in each group. So let's start with 4 negatives. And I have 3 groups of that. So I'm just going to copy and paste those. So in total, what I have is -12. 12 negatives. Okay, this one at the bottom says I have 2 groups of -6. So we'll go with -6. I have 2 groups of that. So in total on this one, I have -12 as well. Okay, let's do a couple more of these. This one says I have 2 groups of -4. So I have -4 chips. And I have 2 groups of that. So in total, I have -8. Okay, this one down here, I have 1 group of -6, which would just give me -6 in total. So we're going to model those. This kind, I have a negative times a positive. So I can't actually have a negative number of groups, right? I can't have -3 groups. But the good thing with multiplication is that you can do it in any order. So you could just say 2 times -3. So that would be 2 groups. This is my multiplication sentence. 2 groups of -3 in each group. So let's quickly model that. That's 1 group of -3. And that's 2 groups. So in total, I have -6. So I can just switch these around if that one's a negative and positive and continue to do it the way I was just doing it. This one is the harder one when I have a negative times a negative. Okay, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to be removing a group. That's going to be considered one of the negatives. Removing a group of a negative. So this first one, I'm going to be removing 5 groups, taking away 5 groups of -2 in each group. So what I have to do is I actually have to add 0 pairs to this so that I can do that. Okay, so 5 groups of -2. So in order to remove those 5 groups, I have to have 5 groups in total. So far I don't have 5 groups of -2 in each. All right. So remove 5 groups of -2. Okay, so I'm going to remove 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, and then these 2 together make a fifth group. So if I remove those 5 groups of -2, what I'm left with is a total of all my red ones, which is +10. Okay, so this is a little bit harder. You're removing groups of. So this one I'm removing 3 groups right here. Removing 3 groups of -4. So I need 3 groups of -4. But if I'm going to do 3 groups of -4, I have to do 3 groups of +4 first. Okay, so I'm going to copy these. All right. So now I need to remove 3 groups of -4. So I'm removing these. 1, 2, 3. What I'm left with is just my red one, so +12. So that's how we do a negative times a negative with a model. Okay, so what I want you to do for these ones is pause the video, write the multiplication sentence out. So how many groups of what, or removing groups of how many, and then you're going to solve them by actually modeling them. You can draw the tiles on your page, and then I will show you the solution in a second. So here are the solutions. Make sure that you have modeled these correctly. So this would be -10, this would be -12, this would be +6, and this would be +12. So this first one, you should have written 2 groups of -5 in each. This one, 3 groups of -4. This one, you're removing 1 group of -6, so that you'd be left with +6. And this one, you're removing 2 groups of -6, which would leave you a +12. Here's a few more you can try. So you can pause the video again if you weren't sure. Write the sentence and model them. And here are the solutions. So that is modeling multiplication with integer chips.